that's a lot of people are in that similar position
Mhm.
where they've already been thinking for a while about transitioning off insurance and adding intensives because it's a different model, because there's deeper transformation. They can be charged at really premium private pay rates.
Yeah.
And so that is really exciting because you can do fewer, like spend less time in the
Mhm.
therapy chair, but be bringing in more income.
Welcome to the Colleague Down the Hall podcast. This episode is sponsored by the Collab Oasis Clinical Consultation Groups. Hi, I'm Janine Wolf, and I'm your colleague down the hall. I have a passion for helping fellow therapists get the clinical and collegial support we all need to do this work. And wow, it just keeps getting harder every day. I'm the founder and facilitator of the Collab Oasis Clinical Consultation Groups. I have been a social worker for almost 30 years, and I own a successful solo online private practice. More of us than ever are practicing in solo or online practices, and we all need colleagues to process cases with, commiserate with on those really hard days, and also to celebrate our successes with. In this podcast, I'll bring you insights about trends and changes in our field and sit down with amazing therapists who are doing amazing work. We'll discuss fictionalized cases, ways to practice sustainably, and of course, there will be plenty of laughing. I love laughing with friends. I'm so glad to have you as one of my colleagues down the hall. Hello, everyone. You are listening to another episode of the Colleague Down the Hall podcast. I'm your host, Janine Wolf, and today I'm joined by Steffeny Feld. Steffeny is a certified EMDR therapist and consultant in St. Louis, Missouri. She created the Intensive Design Lab, which I participated in and loved. And she did this to support therapists to launch intensives in their practice so they can work less and earn more while helping clients heal. And it's been so amazing. So basically, we're going to talk about therapy intensives today. Welcome, Steffeny.
Yay! Thank you so much. It's exciting to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for people who may not know what an intensive is, because I was, I'm going to age myself. I was in school, grad school in the early 90s. And so this wasn't really a thing. And I've heard people talk about it. And I'm like, I just can't wrap my head around it because I had no like frame of reference or perspective around it. So, for those of us who might not know, tell us
Yes.
what it is.
Yes, exactly. So intensives are just a different format of therapy. Instead of meeting with clients once a week for that like hour-ish time frame, an intensive is just an extended format. So there's a ton of different formats that you could do. My personal favorite is I'll meet with people for 3-hour sessions, 3 days in a row. So that's my favorite. Some people will do like a
Yes.
6-hour day with like
Mm-hmm.
couples and go super deep, or do like a whole week-long retreat style intensive.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, it's just that different format. And it really lets, the progress to be accelerated.
Mm-hmm.
And though it goes across lots of modalities in like my trauma work, it really helps clients to feel better faster.
All right. So I know when I was doing the course with you, one of the things that we determined was what is the format that we want to offer.
Yeah.
And when I was first hearing that, I was like, 3 hours, 3 days in a row. Oh my gosh, that sounds overwhelming, exhausting, like all the things. I'm sure you get that a lot from people.
Right. Or like when I first heard of it, first I thought, like, is that real? Like, do legitimate ethical therapists really do like a weekend of therapy? I was very suspicious. But then,
Hmm.
yeah, other like people always say, are you so tired? Like, oh, it just seems like so much. And it's kind of a yes and no. Like, yes, it's hard to tune into someone for like an extended period of time since we're like used to like on the hour mark
Hmm.
shifting or getting up. But in a different kind of way, it's less hard because you're just tuning into one person really deeply. It's not many different people throughout your day who have totally different things going on, or you might be tracking different goals or different nervous systems. So for some therapists, they really like to just focus really deeply on one specific person.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is such a high burnout field, especially since the pandemic. I don't feel like as a field we've really recovered from that. And so the idea of working with one client and not starting and stopping three different sessions, to me, that feels like while you're going to be attuned to them for that period of time, it's one person and you can
Mhm.
sort of like get down in it with them and really delve into the hard stuff. And
Yeah,
so the benefit to that is then the client is making a lot of progress in a shorter amount of time versus having to commit to putting time aside to every single week for however long therapy lasts, right?
right, right, exactly. And it's like the math doesn't math because you would think like if it's a 3-hour intensive, we'll make 3 sessions worth of progress. But that's totally not how it works. People just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper, and it feels really shocking how far you can go when they don't have to like come back up to the surface and like return to their day-to-day life and potentially get more triggered or more things they need to process. But they
Mhm.
just you just keep going deeper. So it's
Mhm.
really exciting for clients. I think they're surprised by how much work they can get done, and also just like fulfilling for us as therapists because that's why we got into the field in the first place, you know?
Right. We want to help people.
Exactly. And I think
Yeah.
we've all had those clients where maybe they come in a little bit guarded or just a lot having happened. And it's not until that 30-minute mark or even like 45 minutes where you feel like they just really start to settle in and
Mhm.
can access their feelings or have insights. And if you're doing the typical model of therapy, it's like you'll have 5 minutes in that zone before you have to kind of like close things up and move on to the next week. But
Right.
in an intensive, if someone takes that long, you still have, maybe 2 or 3 more hours to go. And you don't have to like work to get to that place again. You're just already there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so one of the reasons I was interested in starting this is because I've completed phase 1 and 2 of brain spotting, which I'm really
Yay.
loving. And it seems like that, like EMDR, it lends itself well to intensives. And I'm just like chomping at the bit to be doing these. I'm trying to still put some pieces in place. But I had a client recently that I've worked with for a number of years. We did a brain spotting session, just the regular 50, 53, 55 minutes, 60, whatever. And it was mind blowing how deep she was able to go and what she was able to uncover.
Oh my
And the
gosh.
thought was like, if we had kept going, what type of healing could we have accomplished there? It was so exciting to see that as an example and know, okay, I have this thing I can offer this client now to like, let's knock some of this stuff out.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there is something really powerful about hitting even 90 minutes. Like maybe 3 hours does feel like too much and you're just like, "Oh, that's a lot." But even just having that extra half hour in
Hmm.
trauma processing specifically is like a game changer. They get so much done. And that's where I actually started was just doing 90 minutes and seeing how that felt. And a lot of my clients preferred that. Some people switched from, an hour every week to like every other week at 90 minutes
Okay.
because they felt like they were getting more done, actually.
Right. Right.
So, yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, I just have so many thoughts going through my mind. And okay, so one question is going to be something you covered in the course, but I know people are thinking if you take insurance, like you can do a 90-minute session and expect to get paid more. So 3 hours, again, you're just going to be giving away your time. And so can you share a few thoughts about that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it would be really nice if it was cut and dry and black and white. And really, before January 2022, it was a lot easier because those extended session codes were
Right.
there.
Right.
But once that changed over, it does make it more tricky if you're in
Mhm.
network with your intensive clients' insurance.
Mhm.
So some clients will like want to pay out of pocket and sign an opt-out form. Other therapists, depending on your comfort level, you may not want to do it that way. So it is really The insurance piece is a challenging part of the equation. I'm
Mhm.
curious to hear kind of your thoughts on that too, because I always tell people I'm totally private pay, so
Yeah.
I didn't have to deal with that, but I want to be really honest and sensitive
Mhm.
to that decision making process that a therapist with insur who accepts insurance
Yeah,
may be
yeah,
going through.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, so I've been on quite a journey with that. I went down to just 3 insurances, and I sort of made that a values-based decision with the populations of people I wanted to work with that typically had a specific insurance. I with the consultation groups, we've been having these conversations about clawbacks, about how insurance companies will make a mistake, and now they want to take your money back instead of saying, "I made the mistake, I'm gonna figure it out
Mm,
myself." And then the Change Healthcare cyber attack, like, people aren't getting
yeah.
paid right now, and that's really scary. So I think that this is a shift that we're seeing in our field if you were in the right spaces. When I first found the therapist Facebook groups, I was like, well, I didn't get into this field to make money, and then I heard other perspectives, and it's like, okay, but I need to be able to pay my bills, and I need to be able to save for retirement. And like, one insurance panel wanted to pay me like $65, and I'm like,
Oh.
oh, come on, we've invested into our education. And so what I'm left with is I just don't trust insurance anymore. So and I think the opt out is good, and it's probably fine. But because of my loss of trust in the insurance system, I
Mhm.
worry that there's still some way that they would be able to come back and say, well, were they coerced? Like, was this really real? We want to, you need to give them all this money back. So I am definitely looking into expanding more private pay for that reason. But also,
Yeah.
I'm reaching the end of my career and I need to still be continuing to save. And it's hard
Mhm.
to do that, especially if I was a solo income earner, that wouldn't be happening. I'm fortunate to have a partner who makes a very good income, but I also want to contribute to the household and to our retirement and all those things. So it is definitely a heated topic. I like to say, if you ask 100 therapists this question, you're going to get 100 different answers.
Right, you will, because
Yeah.
I hear people say very firmly, like insurance-based therapists will say, "This is not covered by insurance, it's different than a 90-minute session, it's a completely different, I don't submit it to insurance." It's easy for me because I'm not
Mhm.
paneled with anybody, so really I shouldn't I like to lay out all the different,
Yeah.
um, ways that people could see it, and then you can make the decision that's best for you.
Absolutely. And I think that's always the stance I take. Like, I'm happy if you ask me these questions, I'm happy to provide a variety of perspectives, but the bottom line is if you are running your own practice, you get to make the choice. And I'm not going to
Mhm.
judge you for that choice. We each have different needs and different values and, different things, aspects that come into that decision making. And
Yeah.
so instead of being hating on other people in the field, let's say, why don't we share the information and then support the choice that they're making,
Right.
which you did very well in the course. And I really
Oh,
appreciated
thank
that
you.
because that was coming up quite a bit. And I think for those who take insurance, it is a little scary,
It
you
is,
know?
yeah, and everything in me wants to make it very simple and easy and like, "You can
Yes,
do it," but I think we have to be honest about that piece too. So it is
absolutely.
nice. So you're saying you're still paneled with some insurance companies, but you're offering intensives, like, to private pay clients.
Yes. So I'm actually meeting with an accountant next week because I really am at the point where I want to create another LLC that will be for the intensives so
Mhm.
that it's completely separate, and that just gives me more comfort around that, but I can't do it if it's a lot of money. And so I'm looking into all of that, and I've actually been on this sort of decision making journey for a long time. And
Yeah.
even down to the 3 insurance panels, I have some clients that I've worked with for a while that I love, and so I'm like, I wanna keep working with them. Some of them are seniors, and I just feel like
Yeah.
it would be really hard for them to transition to another therapist at this point, and maybe they wouldn't go at all. So it's complex. complex,
Mhm.
complex, complicated. And so I want to make sure that people listening understand that this is complicated stuff. And
Right,
it's not just
right.
about money and it's not just about offerings, but it's about the clients that we're currently working with, those that we want to work with in the future that maybe we want to say, I only do private pay.
Right.
I,
That's so interesting you say that because that's a lot of people are in that similar position
mm-hmm,
where they've already been thinking for a while about transitioning off insurance and adding intensives because it's a different model, because there's deeper transformation. They can be charged at really premium private pay rates.
yeah,
And so that is really exciting because you can do fewer, like spend less time in the
mhm,
therapy chair, but be bringing in more income.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that is exciting.
Yeah, it is. And with the, with the level of burnout we're experiencing, increasing your fee so you see fewer clients, it's kind of a necessary, not evil, but it's a necessary thing for people to be considering because it
Mhm.
is something that, especially I talk to therapists, they're like, I can only see 3 clients in a row and I can see
Right.
maximum this in a week. And I'm so burnt out at the end of the week. When I was working full time for a group practice and I saw 12 people on Mondays. They were 45-minute
Oh
sessions. And yeah, well, it was
my
sort of the
gosh.
culture of the group I was at that you just
Whew.
like, and there was no lunch breaks, there was nothing. If somebody canceled, I had a lunch break. I If you're listening, I do not encourage that. Do not do that.
No.
And
But,
I would
like,
go
saying
home.
that's real, that's some
It
people's
is real.
reality.
It is some people's, and if they're in community mental health or if they're in a group
Yeah.
practice where that's expected, I would go home and really like just go into my dark bedroom and crawl in the bed and tell my husband, "Can you take
Exactly.
care of the kids cuz I'm exhausted. I have nothing left." And that's
Yes.
not the life that I wanted for myself or for my family. So there are
No.
some benefits, not just financial, but quality of life. The other thing people forget about is that when you are burned out, you're not giving anyone your best work. All of
Yeah.
your clients are suffering from that. So I want people to look at this from a perspective of it's not just about you, but it's about the
Mhm.
people that you're working with.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, and then we feel bad about ourselves, like, if you're just
Right.
phoning it in on a session afterwards, you don't feel good, like, that's not
No.
why we went to school to do this,
Right.
so I
Right.
think it, like, compounds, like,
Mhm.
the exhaustion and the bad feelings, and I totally relate to what you said, at times of life when I had that heavy of a workload, my health deteriorated. Like, I live
Mhm.
with a chronic health condition, and it severely impacted my physical health and your relationships,
Yes.
because I mean, how many of us have done that? Like, your ears are burning because you've listened to so many people that day, and then your
Mhm.
partner just wants to have a nice moment, like, "Hey, honey, how was your day?" And you're just like, "Nope, nope, no more talking. I can't talk." Like, I'm an introvert, my social battery is, like, negative.
Right.
And it's like,
Yeah.
who would I rather be giving my attention and my energy to? Like,
Right.
I really, really love my clients, but, like, I wanna give that to my husband. I wanna give that to my child,
Right.
not, like, crawl into my bed cave at the end of the day, you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
But that's real.
You have a little one. When, they went to middle school, mine are in their late 20s, early 30s, and when they were in middle school and high school, at 10 o'clock at night, they'd be like, "Mom, can we talk?" And I'd be like, "No, I
Right,
absolutely
no.
can't. I'm happy to talk to you tomorrow, earlier in the evening. 7 o'clock works, 8 o'clock works. I can even do 9 o'clock, maybe, but
Right.
cannot do 10 o'clock heart to heart."
Which is so funny because I think it comes to our values, like, I think
Mhm.
every single one of us would be like, "I wanna drop everything if my kid ever wants to
Yeah.
talk to me." Like, that's our value, but then we,
Mhm.
like life gets set up in such a way that, like,
Mhm.
we can't do that. My
Yeah.
mentality is, like, I would love to have a home-cooked meal with my family every night,
Right.
but if I'm overworking myself,
Mhm.
forget it. Like, that's just not gonna happen. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
do it. And so I think that was like a big turning point for me when I realized like the decisions I'm making in work are impacting
Yes.
those things that I feel are important to me. Like they don't
Yeah.
happen just out of nowhere. It's
Right.
it's like sort of a chain reaction.
Yeah, and I think a values perspective in any decision making with a private practice is so important.
Mhm.
And I really came to see that really clearly when when we talked about late cancellation and no show fees. And I realized that if I don't feel comfortable looking a client in the face and stating my policy, then it wasn't the right one for me, you know?
Mhm.
And so everyone needs to decide, do I feel comfortable saying this to a client? And if I do, okay, that's a great decision. But if I'm cringing and feeling scared or nervous, then I need to rethink this decision.
Right, because you're not gonna enforce it anyway if you're
Right.
not feeling good about it. So you
Yes.
can make
Yes.
every great policy, but it's not gonna
Right.
do anything.
Yep. Yeah. And again, that's one of those tricky areas in our field where people get really shamey and judgy about it. But, we all need to do what works for us.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, love
Okay. So we totally got off on a tangent here. That does
it.
happen with me sometimes. I'm sorry.
Same.
Okay, so let's talk about, are there particular modalities or client populations that do especially well with intensives?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of people who come into the Facebook group or into the intensive design lab just assume it's only EMDR or it's only
Hmm.
trauma, which I'd say for the most part, that's a group or a presenting concern that has really taken off with intensives recently. But
Hmm.
that's not the only issue or like presenting concern or modality or whatever that can work. Some other ones, I think couples work is
Oh, yes.
really, really good for intensives. You think about couples who are in difficult times of life or conflicts, and maybe they're getting into something into a session and then they have to go back to life and it's not quite
Right.
resolved yet. So a couples intensive can be really powerful. There's a lot of grief work or like grief
Yes.
retreats, especially, the loss of a child or a loss by suicide, like more sensitive or stigmatized types of losses, more like traumatic losses. Another one is anxiety and phobias. And
Hmm.
actually, in my research, CBT intensives have been around for a long time. And there's research around them, which is pretty interesting. I wasn't aware of that. But especially an intensive for a specific phobia, like fear of flying or fear of swimming or water, those are so concrete because people want to go take a vacation or they want to go to
Hmm.
the beach. And so being able to have like a very concrete like goal and to say, okay, I'm going to dedicate this time and this money towards working on this issue.
Hmm.
So those are the main ones that come to my mind right away, but I'm sure there's many, many more. Really, any therapist can
Hmm.
offer an intensive because it's just a different format.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, with talk therapy, I think like, oh my gosh, 3 hours of talk therapy sounds terrible. But I
Right.
do think it does like it does need to be reflected on your framework and all that kind of stuff. But I can see like depending on the age of the kids, like family therapy, that could be really
Yes.
powerful.
Yes, I'm actually supporting a therapist right now who's creating a program for teenagers and young adults around self-harm.
Oh
So
wow.
the intensive involves like a parent session, a family session, sessions with the kid to help with like DBT skills. And so it can be really creative. It doesn't have to be, I think most people think like 3 hours of talk therapy, which like that does
Yeah.
not sound great. But you can also integrate it with really neat things, like
Hmm.
some people will integrate art or sand tray, nature-based intensives, like some walk and talk
That sounds amazing.
are yes. Someone said they do intensives like at a beach house and the person can literally like be in the sand, feel the ocean, like how grounding that is. You
Oh, that's
know,
amazing.
doesn't that just sound so good?
Yes.
If I'm the client, I'm like, I'll pay anything. I want to do that.
Yeah, yeah. That's yeah, so I think the lesson here is we need to open up our minds and not think about the little box of an hour-ish and what we can accomplish then, but what are the ways that we can take what we're already doing really well, the clients that we work really well with already, and let's look at the possibilities of quicker progress and healing, and maybe not having to commit to every week for X number of years to accomplish the
Right.
same thing.
Which honestly, maybe we don't want to be doing every week of therapy forever. I mean, I think some therapists get nervous because they're like, that's job security and my income.
Yes.
But if you're offering it in a different format, maybe you're getting that same amount of income, but instead of doing 2 weeks of work, you're doing 1 week or a weekend. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of clients prefer that too. There's lots of people I think who the weekly format of therapy doesn't work for them. Maybe they're a parent and in the evenings, they're, rushing kids to sports and adding an appointment to their family schedule is like not possible. Or they're traveling for work a lot, or, they're a teacher. And so like, forget it. Like
Right.
that work schedule, a doctor, EMT, like whatever it is, there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people that weekly therapy is very difficult to put on their schedule, but they could do a weekend or like take off a few days to do a very focused, intensive experience.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. So some of the practical things you shared with us was, okay, so like starting with 90 minutes and see how that feels. Maybe blocking out a 3 hour block in your schedule and trying just one 3 hour session with one client and commit to maybe I'm going to do one of those a month and see how it feels. And
yeah.
then do I want to expand that to 2 days or 3 days? And so you don't have to jump in with both feet. You don't have to go all in. You can ease into this. And like so many of us need to do, we have to figure out what works for us and our nervous system and our neurotype and our energy and all of those things. And so, do you have any more thoughts about that with getting started?
Yeah. No, I love that. That it can be at your own pace. It can be what feels comfortable to you. Most people who do it, like the amount of times I hear therapists say, "Oh my gosh, they say I'm hooked." Like I've heard people say it's like a
Mhm.
high,
Yeah.
that the experience. And so I just tell people, don't overthink it. Just try it once and then decide.
Hmm.
You can make an informed decision. If you enjoyed it, great. If not, that's okay too. There's
Hmm.
no there's no risk. You can continue on the way you've been going. Um,
Yeah.
but I love what you said about our own like nervous system and neurotype because I am a very highly sensitive person,
Hmm.
and I am neurodivergent. And I didn't realize that the typical model of therapy was actually very challenging for me. Like managing the time, ending sessions on time,
Right.
writing the notes. Listen, a lot of people are excited if you do an intensive. That's just one note.
Right.
And that's a big,
Hallelujah. Yes,
right,
yes.
that's a big selling point. But
Hmm.
I didn't know any other way. So I didn't know that that was like draining me to be around 7 different nervous systems in a day and have to adjust myself towards them or to remember the treatment goals of the 7 people that I'm trying to meet with and
Yeah.
where we are in the goal and what we're working on and whatever crisis they may be coming in with. I didn't know any different. And now I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, that was not serving me.
Right.
Like that was actually really challenging. But we
Hmm.
don't know what we don't know. We just think like
Yeah.
that's how therapy is, so we should just
Yeah.
just do it, you know?
Right. And that's the model that most of us are trained up in graduate school. And, there's no other options out there. And so, excuse me, I think one of the things I love about our field these days is that we're learning so much more about nervous systems and neurotypes and what's good for the client, what works for us. But then I take that on a tangent of I also so love that more clinicians are stepping up and saying, I'm going to be me. I'm going to have purple hair on my website. My tattoos are going to be showing. I'm going to share some of my life experiences because clients are going to know that I'm relatable. And this is just kind of another extension of that, just showing
Mhm.
up in a way that is good for you, that also is good for your clients.
Right. And it's like you said before, if we're burnt out, we're not doing our best work. But if we, like on the flip side of that, if this type of therapy makes you feel more alive, that's going
Mhm.
to translate to your clients too. allow them
Absolutely.
to feel more connected and go deeper.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I think that's where niching has come in that, I did an assessment of my population and I was a generalist. And I realized that there were some clients that were so exhausting. So I started taking notes of which are the clients at the end of the session do I feel energized? Even if it was a
yes.
really hard session, I feel like, yes, that was great work. And then I looked for the commonalities, and that's how I came up with my niche. And so I think we need to extend this to the way time wise, location wise. Some people hate being online, some people love it. How long are you going to see clients? We need to take all of those things into account because we can enjoy our work. We
Yeah.
really can.
Yeah, right. And maybe we should. I mean, it's what we spend the majority of our time doing. Like
Hmm.
what I do in session impacts my, like we said, my home, my relationship with my family. And so I want to pay close attention to that. And I love what you said, like tracking when you felt
Yes.
energized and when you felt depleted. I did the same thing. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's like I can't even put my finger on why that was so depleting. But after it
Hmm.
happens so many times, you're like, oh, that's what it was.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
And for people who talk about accessibility, we all want therapy to be accessible, but we also need to keep in mind that the client that's exhausting me is someone else's ideal client. And so matching them up with that therapist is good for your client. It's not just that you're
Yes,
saying, I can't do this, but you're saying you're going to get such better treatment, such better therapy with this person who adores working with people like you.
exactly. I think we assume that all therapists like the same things as us and that
Yeah.
nobody is going to actually enjoy that. But
Hmm.
it's true. Some
Yeah,
people like
absolutely.
genuinely enjoy the things that I strongly dislike.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so between your training and brain spotting, my mind has been opened in so many really cool ways. I'm really enjoying
Yeah.
that. And so we talked about people who just kind of want to dip their toe in and kind of figure out if they like it and how do they like it, what format, what length, all that kind of stuff. For people that are ready to go all in,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you train about this high-end premium service,
Yeah.
and so it includes more than just the 9 hours. You have other things that you offer, and I think that that is such a great thing for your clients. I'm sure it serves them in ways that other formats don't.
Right. I think so. I mean, the amount of times clients say, like, this has changed my life, I'm a different person, is shocking. Like, again,
Hmm.
that's so cliche, but it happens all the time. And then that's so like fulfilling for me. That fills me up. Even though I'm
Hmm.
working, I don't feel depleted. So
Right.
that's what, once I kind of had that experience and it happened not just once, but again and again. I was like, oh my gosh, like more of us need this because, yeah, our field is tired and burnt out
Hmm.
and we need
Right.
this like refreshing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then you can also expand to, I know the more I'm getting into this, I'm hearing that there are therapists that offer, like, okay, now after the session, you can go to this massage place and get a discounted
Yes.
rate and have a massage. Or, this is like a really great health food restaurant. Maybe you can go there and get a discount because, you need to nourish your body after working this hard. There's lots of things that you can add to this to really make it a premium service for people.
Yeah, yeah, it's so neat. I mean, some therapists are multi-talented and they do like they're also yoga teachers or they
Yep.
also do like Reiki. And so that's a really cool opportunity to incorporate all the things that you love. Or if you have like a colleague who does that, there's like
Mhm.
someone in my suite who does that type of work. We can pair up together. Or like you said, just partnering with other community groups. And
Mhm.
so it does feel very, it's like a retreat weekend away. Even if people are still coming into my office, we're not like in a cabin in the woods or something.
Mhm.
Like maybe they're getting a hotel and like you said, they're like getting a massage and doing this like really deep therapy work for themselves.
Right.
That that's not the standard. That's not the norm.
Mhm.
And when people are so rested and refreshed like that, they can go deeper too.
Yeah, for sure. And I was talking to a colleague about, like, you can my practice is completely virtual. So my intention is to do these virtually, and the brain spotting training I learned was all virtual. But finding a client who's in another state who really loves what you offer, saying, okay, I'm going to come into town and stay at a really nice hotel, and we're going to do these sessions together. And then I'm going to pamper myself at the same time.
Yes.
That's a different level of support that they're getting.
It really is. And I think a lot of people are like, who are these people who are going to pay for this?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
That's what
Thank
people
you for
say.
saying yes. Uh-huh.
Yes. And I'm like, listen, we aren't like, we don't know. We're not passing judgment on people out in the world and how they pay for something. If that's valuable to them and they want that experience, they'll pay for it. So I
Right.
always say, like, just put it out there into the world, and you may be surprised,
Mm-hmm.
who responds. At this
Yeah.
point, my practice is primarily intensives. So I'm doing them, every month, year round. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times people, they love it so much they want to come back again and again.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they tell people, you
Yeah.
they can't help it.
Right.
It's such an amazing experience. So
Right.
they are out there. Believe it or not, it's shocking.
Right.
They're out there.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Okay. So do you have any other thoughts before we start wrapping this up about intensives, advice or suggestions? Obviously tell them about your course, because I can attest that it was great. I felt like it gave me everything I needed to, start putting things in place.
Yay. Well, good. That's so good to hear. Well, I mean, if people want to kind of dip your toe into the world, there's free trainings and community in the Facebook group, which is the Therapy Intensive Community launching intensives in private practice. So that's a great place to start. And
Okay.
there's tons of therapists in there from all different backgrounds who are connecting around one thing, which is intensives. So it's a great
Mm-hmm.
place to get inspiration and ideas. We're just celebrating together, like all the successes. And yeah, I have a course. It's called Launch Guide. There's a workshop version and a cohort, and I help therapists bring intensives into their practice
Mm-hmm.
every step of the way. Because really, we're all very busy. It's difficult to take on a new project like this. It can feel really intimidating. This course was just developed over time. Therapists that I supported, what they said they needed to make it easy peasy. So it's all there for you. That way you can get back to your clients and, enjoy your life more and more.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I liked that you have different options for different price points. So you can get the basic training, but then you can also get, like, I opted for all of the paperwork, all the forms, all of the things, because I just don't have time to create that. And it's just so nice to say, okay, someone else has done the writing the copy. I can just modify it to my needs and my client's needs, and I don't have to like reinvent the wheel here.
Yeah, and like there are many therapists who've gone before you who said, I need this, I need that.
Right.
And every time someone says something, boom, it's right there. So the longer the program's alive, the more robust it becomes, and it just keeps
Yeah.
getting easier and easier.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to put your contact information in the show notes so people can be able to check you out and connect with you. I have to ask my question. What is your favorite catchphrase or analogy that you like to use with clients?
Hmm. Well, the analogy that I like to use, it really comes to parts work. So, that's a big thing that I do along with EMDR.
Yeah. Love
And
that.
I love that picture of the house in our head and imagining the different parts of us where are in the house. Maybe my
Mm-hmm.
little kid part is playing jacks on the floor and my grandma part is knitting and things like that. I have a
Uh-huh.
whole thing on it if you want to
Yeah.
like,
That's very cool.
but that way all the different parts of me are taken care of and doing things that help them feel at peace and
Mm-hmm.
enjoy. So the house in your head.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I love that. And that's why I asked this question, because I just hear so many amazing creative responses, because we're very creative in our field. We just
Yes.
have to share the information sometimes. So, all right. Well, Stephanie, I really enjoyed having you on today, hearing about your intensives. I know that this is going to be inspiring to people. It's going to open their a perspective about different things about their practice. And so thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
And yeah, so for everyone listening, there are new episodes of the Colleague Down the Hall podcast released every Thursday on all major platforms. Please remember, our work is hard, but it doesn't have to be lonely. Thank you so much for listening to the Colleague Down the Hall podcast. For show notes, links, and downloads, head over to colleaguedownthehall.com, where you'll be able to learn more about getting the clinical support you need and resources to help you work in a supported, sustainable way. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share with your therapy friends and colleagues. Subscribe to the podcast, and if you love this episode, please leave a review.